class. My name is Sarah Edwards, and today I will be covering Chapter 5, which is Motivating Behaviors in our text. Our class was led by Dr. Bruce Kirk. So moving right along, the nature of motivation. Motivation is a set of forces that lead people to behave in particular ways. So essentially it is why we do the things that we do. And from the next slide, we see that the importance of motivation is that motivation actually counts for a third of our performance. And within the motivational framework, the foundation of motivation is a need, anything an individual wants or requires. So we experience a need. Let's say an individual wants an office space with sunlight. Then they search for ways to satisfy this need, such as they could collaborate with someone that already has the office space. They could sneak into an empty office space with a window and hope that no one notices. Or they could work harder and attempt to receive that small promotion, which would allow them to move into that office space with the window. So then we come to the third point in the framework, which is choice of goal-directed behaviors. So they then choose to work harder in order to achieve this office space. At that point, they begin working harder, which is step 4, the enactment of behavior. At step 5, they are rewarded for this behavior and they are allowed to move into this office space. At this point, they've reached step 6 and they begin to reevaluate their needs and reassess whatever they need within the motivational framework. So we're going to move along to early perspectives. So to make this section a bridge for you, the traditional approach or scientific management is emphasize that money motivates people. The human relation approach emphasizes that inclusiveness and feeling a sense of belonging is what motivates people. And then the tertiary one here is human resource approach, which is that people are capable and would like to contribute to the work mission. So now here we see some differences within people, so individual differences in motivations. So the reason is task-specific self-efficacy, which is the person's belief that he or she can complete a task or their capabilities or abilities. And this is foundational upon 3 principles, which is magnitude, how difficult a specific task is, the strength, the ability of that individual, or the generality, which is to compare this task with another similar task that they know is accomplishable. And one of the main points to take away from here is that managers can actually improve task-specific self-efficacy through coaching and encouragement. So this is very critical because managers can actually improve their workforces, and by making them, well, obviously give them a higher level of self-efficacy, but additionally improve their performance. So we're going to move on to need-based perspectives on motivation. Need-based theories assume that need deficiencies cause behavior. So the first theorist here is Maslow, and obviously his hierarchy of needs is very well known. So within organizational, the basic physiological need is salary. The security need is job security. Social needs would be a friendly and warm work environment. Esteem needs are job title. Self-actualization is challenging within the job. And as we know, within Maslow's hierarchy, it's been through the ringer with some critics. Not everyone needs to achieve all 5 levels, first of all. And secondly, it's unsustainable and variable within the structure our needs are. So we're going to move to the next theorist, which is actually very similar to Maslow. And here we see the ERG theory, so existence need, basic human survival, and that's very similar to the first 2 structures within Maslow's theory. Relatedness, needs to relate to others, directly related to the third structure within Maslow's theory. And then we have the growth needs, which is self-esteem and self-actualization, which are the top 2 tiers. Moving on to the next one, this one's a little bit more independent. So this is a 2-factor theory, and this one was done on a study of engineers and accountants within Pittsburgh. So the first one is motivation factors, and it is we are intrinsically motivated to for achievement and recognition. The second one is an extrinsic factor or external, and it is factors such as pay or jobs. We're going to move on to the fourth one and final, and this one is the acquired needs framework. And the acquired needs framework centers on the need for achievement and affiliation. So this one has 3 subcategories, which is achievement, and this one is the desire to accomplish tasks better than you did in the past. The second one is the need for companionship, maybe collaboration or a friendly work environment. And the last one is power, the desire to control your work environment. So now we're going to move on to the next section, which is process-based perspectives on motivation. So these process-based perspectives focus on how people behave in their efforts to satisfy their needs. So within this, we see the equity theory of motivation, and this focuses on people's desire to be treated as what they perceive as equity and to avoid perceived inequity. So basically equality among the workforce. So as we can see from this chart, they compare to others, and ideally they would see equity and they're motivated to continue their current situation. However, if they find for whatever reason the situation's unequal or inequity, they change their inputs. At this point, this is depending on their assessment, they perform better or worse. Change outcome. Also, depending on the assessment, they might require more money or they might become more satisfied with their work environment, such as work-life balance or something like that. The third characteristic would be to alter the perception of self. So maybe they reflect and decide, you know what, I don't do as much work as I pretend that I do, and I guess this is all right. So the fourth one would be perception of others. So then they identify that the person they've been comparing themselves to has been with the company for 20 years and is very well diverse within the work culture as well as the way everything flows, and they've only been there for 6 months, and they've decided that it's not really fair to compare themselves to this veteran at the office. And then at that point, they change comparisons, and if they continue to find that it's inequity, then they leave the situation. So we're going to move along to the next theory, and it's the expectancy theory of motivation. So this one has 2 main concepts, and it is the effort to perform expectancy, a person's perception, the probability that the effort will lead to performance. So we're going to move on to the outcome, and this performance to outcome instrumentally. This is the individual's perception that the probability of the performance will lead to certain outcomes. And if you go to the next slide, you can actually see this in a chart. So here you see motivation. Expectancy, will my effort lead to high performance? Instrumentally, will this performance lead to an outcome? And balance, do I find these outcomes desirable? So this is partly what motivates, or a theory as to what motivates employees within the workforce. And then also we see the Porter-Lawyer model, and this one incorporates similar theory. In addition, we can see the intrinsic rewards and extrinsic rewards, which incorporates the 2-theory model. And we also see this equity theory coming back, perceived equity of rewards. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next section now. Learning-based perspectives on motivation. So learning, a relative permanent change in behavior or potential resulting from direct or indirect experience. So here, how learning occurs. Classical conditioning, a simple form of learning that links a conditioned response with an unconditioned stimulus. Reinforced theory in learning, based on the idea that behavior is a function of consequences. So when I was younger, I always intended and made sure that I was in class on time. because if not on class on time, then you received detention or some ill-desired effect. But now in my current office position, I do not have to be in the office at a set time, so I do not go to the office by 8 every day. So that would be an example of reinforced theory and learning. Social learning. When people observe behaviors in others, recognize consequences, and alter their own behavior as a result. So an example in here is if, let's say, Bob was late every day. Eventually Bob got fired. I would then learn not to be late every day because I would fear that I would too get fired. So the last slide on here, second to last, is behavior modification. And this one is the application of reinforced theory to influence behavior of people in organizational settings. So obviously positive reinforcement would be implementation of a bonus or extra leave or something of that nature. Negative reinforcement would possibly be removal of extra paperwork. Punishment would be some type of punishment would be some type of a write-up of sorts, or extinction, which would be to maybe remove someone from a window if they're peering out of the window instead of doing work, something along those lines. So I know I breezed through that very quickly. That was a lot of content. Thank you for bearing with me. So on this following slide, I have the 5-step process to identify desired behaviors. So define the problem. What is it that could be improved? 2, identify and define the specific behaviors you wish to change. 3, record and track the occurrence of the targeted behavior. 4, analyze the current negative consequences and undesired behaviors. 5, evaluate whether the behaviors has improved and how much. So within this, I want you guys to define a behavior problem in your workplace that needs to be corrected and explain how to address it based off of some of the theories that we've gone over. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Good luck to everyone on the rest of it.